Hello, welcome to Math with Mr. Dobrescu to the rescue. Today we are going to look at solving more equations using this time multiplication and division properties of equality. But let's take a look at the warm-up first. Here we have d minus 2.8 divided by 0.2 equals negative 14. Let's solve for d. So remember, we need to isolate d on this side of the equation in order to get to solve for d. So first, we need to divide 2.8 divided by 0.2. Negative 2.8 divided by 0.2. The easiest way to solve this division is to turn the decimals into whole numbers by moving the decimal to the right one place. Whatever we do to one number, we have to do to the other numbers. So here we moved one place to the right, therefore we need to move this decimal one place to the right for 0.2, and now we are turning that into whole numbers. Okay, so that becomes d minus 28 divided by 2 equals negative 14. Okay, so again we move the decimal to the right one place, and here we move the decimal to the right one place, and now we have 28 divided by 2. So 28 divided by 2, 28 divided by 2, 2 goes into 2 one time, 1 times 2, 2, 2 minus 2 is 0, bring down the 8, and 2 goes into 8 4 times. 4 times 2 equals 8. So here we get 14. So we get d minus 14 equals negative 14. And now we have to add 14 on both sides in order for us to get d by itself. So let's add 14 on both sides plus 14. Negative 14 and positive 14 cancels out, so we get d equals negative 14 and positive 14 becomes a 0. So we get a 0. D equals 0. And this is our solution. D equals 0. Okay? D equals 0. Now let's check our answer to see if we got the right solution. So instead of D in the problem, we are going to put 0. We are going to replace D with 0 and see, let's see what we get. So let's check our work. So now we have, instead of D, we have 0. So we have 0 minus 2.8 divided by 0.2 equals negative 14. And we already know that negative 2.8 divided by 0.2, it actually gave us negative 14. So this becomes negative 14. So we have 0 minus 14 equals negative 14. And 0 minus 14 is actually negative 14. So negative 14 equals negative 14. And we get a true answer, true. That's a true statement. Therefore, d equals 0 is the solution to this equation. Okay? It's okay to get 0 as the answer for an equation. Now, let's take a look at some more equations now here involving multiplication and division properties of equality. So in this case here we have 4 equals negative 0.8n. Okay, this means that we have negative 0.8 times n. And remember, in order for us to get n by itself, we have to divide both sides by negative 0.8. Negative 0.8 on both sides. Negative 0.8 using the division property of equality. Whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. In this case, whatever we divide one side of the equation, we need to divide the other side of the equation. And here we have negative 0.8 divided by negative 0.8. Remember, negative divided by negative becomes a positive, and it cancels out. So we get n equals, and now here we have a positive number divided by a negative number is going to be a negative number. Positive divided by negative becomes a negative. And now let's divide 4 by 0.8. The easiest way to divide that, we can turn 0.8 into a whole number by moving the decimal to the right one place. So that becomes an 8. But here at the top, since we did that, now we have to add a 0 to the 4 because we are also moving the decimal to the right one place. Here we move the decimal to the right one place, and here we have to add the 0. So that becomes 40 divided by 8. Okay? But we know that it's going to be a negative number because positive divided by negative becomes a negative. So 8 into 40, 5 times. 5 times 8, 40. So the final answer is negative 5. N equals negative 5. And let's check our work to see if we got the right answer. So we go back to the original equation. So let's check our work. So to check our work, that was a 4. So we have 4 equals negative 0.8 times, in this case, n is negative 5. So negative 5 is going to replace n, negative 5. So now we have 4 equals negative times a negative becomes a positive. And if we multiply 0.8 times 5, 0.8 times 5, 5 times 8, 40, right? And let's move the decimal one place, and that becomes a 4. So this becomes a 4. 4 equals 4. We get a true statement. Therefore, n equals negative 5 is the solution to our equation. I hope this was clear to you. Remember, if we move the decimal to the right one place, here we need to add a 0 for the 4. And that made our division a lot easier because now we divide whole numbers. 40 divided by 8 becomes 5. Let's continue with another problem here. So here we have 3 over 2, we have a fraction, equals 9 over 10k. How do you solve this equation? Remember here we have a multiplication, 9 over 10 times k. The other day we discussed about a property to get k by itself is called multiplying by the reciprocal. Remember we did this movement, multiplying by the reciprocal. If we multiply the reciprocal here by the reciprocal of 9 over 10 is actually 10 over 9. So let's multiply both sides of the equation by 10 over 9. Whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side, times 10 over 9. And let's see what we get. Now 10 and 9s are canceling out. They simplify to a big 1, or just k. Okay, because 9 divided by 9 is 1, 10 divided by 10 is 1. So 1k equals, and here we can simplify it further. We can see that we can simplify 10 in 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And 9 divided by 3 is 3. So this becomes 5 over 3. K equals 5 over 3, which is the solution to our equation. But let's check our work to make sure that we got the right answer. So let's check our work. When we check our work here, we have to replace 5 over 3 into the k original equation. So we have 3 over 2 equals 9 over 10 times, instead of k, we are going to replace 5 over 3. And let's see if we get a true statement. 3 over 2 equals, and now let's see if we can simplify 5 and 10 and 9 and 3, and yes we can, because 10 divided by 5 becomes 2 and 1 here, and 9 divided by 3 becomes 3. So after we simplify 9 over 10 times 5 over 3, we get 3 over 2. 3 over 2, and indeed 3 over 2 equals 3 over 2, which is a true statement. Therefore, 5 over 3 is the solution to our equation. Let's take a look at 2 more examples here. Let me do this on the smart board here. And let's take a look at this example. Negative 7.8x equals negative 1.56. And let's solve this equation. Again, between negative 7.8 and x, we have a multiplication. And remember, to get the x by itself or to solve for x, we have to undo that by dividing both sides by negative 7.8. Whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. Negative 7.8. Okay, because negative divided by negative becomes a positive, and 7.8 divided by 7.8 cancels out, so we get x by itself equals, and now let's see how can we solve this. Negative 1.56 divided by negative 7.8. Here we know that negative divided by a negative become a positive, so we know that we are going to have a positive answer. But let's divide the numbers. Again, the easiest way to divide this would be to change the decimals into whole numbers by moving the decimal here at the top 2 places, 1, 2, and whatever we do on the top, we do on the bottom. So on the bottom, we are also going to move the decimal 2 places, 1, 2, and add a 0 here. Okay, so now the problem is a lot easier. So now we are going to divide 156 divided by 780. Now we just have whole numbers, which is a lot easier to work with instead of working with decimals. Okay, so let's see how many times 780 goes into 156. Of course, 0 times, so it's 0, so let's put 0 up here. 0 times 780, right, is gonna be 0. Okay, so now we subtract 156, okay? And now we are going to add a 0 and a decimal. Don't forget that. Adding a 0 and a decimal. Let's bring this 0 down now. And now let's ask ourselves the question. How many times 780 goes into 1560? And let's try some numbers. Let's try 2. Let's try 2 to see if it works. Maybe it will work. Let's see. So let's try 2 here. So let's multiply 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 8, 16. 6. Carry the 1. 2 times 7, 14 plus 1, 15. And indeed, 2 works because we get 1560. And if we subtract, we get 0 here. Okay, so the answer is 0.2. X equals negative divided by negative becomes a positive 0.2. This is our solution to the equation. But again, let's check our work to make sure we got the right answer. So let's check our work. Let me use a different color here to check the work. Check. And remember, we have to substitute 0.2 into this x, and with the hope that we get a true statement. So now we have negative 7.8, negative 7.8. Instead of x, we put 0.2 times 0.2 equals negative 1.56. Okay? So again here, we have to make sure that this side of the equation is going to give us negative 1.56. And here we know that negative times a positive becomes a negative, so we know for sure that we are going to have a negative number here. And then let's multiply 7.8 times 0.2 by the side. So we have 7.8 times 0.2 by the side, because we already got the sign. 2 times 8 is 16. 6 carry the 1. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15. And remember, with multiplication, when we multiply decimals, we are waiting until the end, and now we are counting the decimals. How many places? So we have 1, 2, then you go at the end of the number and you count 2 places. 1, 2. So our answer is 1.56, but it's negative, because negative times a positive number becomes a negative, so negative 1.56 equals negative 1.56, and we get a true statement. Therefore, 0.2 is the solution to our equation. I'm going to leave it here for a moment to make sure you understand how to solve an equation involving decimals. Okay? Remember, we had to turn negative 1.56 into a whole number that becomes negative 156, right? 156, which was here, divided by, and here we move 2 places, 1, 2, divided by 780, okay? And here negative times a negative becomes a positive. We know that now we are dealing with a positive answer. We are going to get a positive answer. So after we did the division, right, 780 was not able to go into 156 only 0 times. And then after we did all the division, we got the answer 0.2. And this is our solution to our equation. Let's take a look at one more equation to make sure that you guys are getting enough practice so you'll be able to do really well on any assessment involving simple equation when we have to use multiplication and division properties of equalities. Okay, let's take a look at this problem here. Here we have negative 4.3g equals 25.8. And in this case, again, to get g by itself on this side of the equation, we have to divide both sides by negative 4.3. Negative 4.3. So we can cancel this, because negative divided by negative becomes a positive, and 4.3 divided by 4.3 becomes 1g, or just g. Okay? But remember, whatever we do to one side of the equation, we have to do to the other side of the equation. So let's do the same thing here. We have to divide negative 4.3. And now the same thing like the previous problem. The easiest way to divide those numbers is to make them whole numbers by moving the decimal to the right one place. Whatever we do to the top, we do to the bottom. And now we have 258 divided by negative 43. Okay? That's what it means. And let's see what we get. So let's divide here. 258 divided by 43 is going to be a negative answer, because positive divided by negative becomes a negative. Okay, 43 goes into 258. Let's try some numbers. Which numbers times 3 would give us an 8 at the end? Let's see. 3 times 3, 9. 2 times 3, 6. Not enough. How about 4? 4 times 3, 12. Doesn't work. How about 5? 5 times 3, 15. Doesn't work. How about 6? 6 times 3, 18. Okay, let's try 6. See if 6 might be the answer. 6 times 3, 18. 8, carry the 1. 6 times 4, 24. Plus 1, 25. So 6 actually works. And now 258 minus 258, we get 0. So final answer is actually 6, but it's negative 6 because positive divided by negative becomes a negative. So negative 6 is our answer to this problem. And again, let's check to make sure we got the right answer. So let's check. And again, we are going to replace negative 6 into the original equation for G. And let's see if we get a true statement. So we have negative 4.3 times, instead of G, we are going to put negative 6 equals 25.8. 25.8. Okay? And here we know that negative times a negative becomes a positive. Right? So we are going to have a positive number here. And let's divide those, let's multiply those numbers. 4.3 times 6. Okay? 6 times 3, 18. 8, carry the 1. 6 times 4, 24. Plus 1, 25. And don't forget now to move the decimal one place. You go at the end of the number one place to the left. And that becomes 25.8. Again, negative times the negative becomes a positive. So here we get 25.8 equals 25.8. And we get a true statement. Therefore, G equals negative 6 is the solution to our equation. Thank you all so much for your time, and thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video with your friends and anyone who is struggling with solving simple equations involving multiplication and division properties of equality. Thank you all so much again, and please stay tuned for our next video. All the best to you.